All right, Emily. Hi, thank you very, very much for joining us today. Um, let's, I guess, first start by uh, giving our attendees an idea of when you started with Matterport and what you're doing with Hopscotch International.
Well, thank you so much, Amir. It's so nice to be here and to get this invitation to chat with you on Shop Talk today. So, for those of you who are not familiar with me and with my company, Hopscotch, I started using Matterport in 2015, early 2015, and I started the company in the fall of 2015 after I was using it at a startup with some friends. We were doing some property management 2.0 at the time, and I really just loved the system. This was the Matterport Pro 1, and so 2015 is a long time ago, and we talked about what the future could bring with the Matterport camera. I would say that there was hardly an ecosystem to speak of at that time, and it was really just a bunch of people who uh, were excited and enthusiastic about what the camera could do, as mostly for me at the time, like a virtual tour uh, system. And Hopscotch Interactive was founded to bring extraordinary spaces to the world. So I started as a more or less a property marketing company, solo entrepreneur at the beginning, and I'm located in the San Francisco Bay Area. And since 2015, I've grown my team to 7 people plus a number of contractors, and we service commercial real estate, residential real estate, also the AEC industry to some extent. And things really, for me anyway, just sort of uh, morphed into me diving deeper and deeper into virtual reality, augmented reality, and understanding everything that 3D enabled.
Awesome. Thank you very much for correcting me. I apologize. I said International Interactive.
It's
Very
all good.
important.
It's all good.
I apologize. I don't know why international.
Oh, it's
Anyway,
it's it's international too. I'm totally fine with that.
awesome. Okay, brilliant. So you've been doing this for a while. Just want to make it very clear that you know what you're talking about when it comes to using Matterport. You've probably scanned how many different, like many different types of places, not just all residential real estate, right? You've been doing, like you
Yes,
said, commercial real estate as well,
yes, yes.
big open spaces like the one behind you,
Mm-hmm.
as well as, very kind of tight spaces.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've scanned so many different kinds of properties. Even early in the day, I always like to tell the story that one of my first scans was a cemetery before we could even really scan outdoors. And so, getting up at 5:30 in the morning to get somewhere to be able to scan in the, before the sunlight hit. And so I've scanned, large open spaces. I've scanned residential properties, pretty much it's any property that you can think of, I've probably scanned, and I've scanned them in every condition. I think that's the other thing is that, it could be a property that, is completely shell condition, like the one behind me, or it could be like a beautiful mansion, multi-million dollar mansion that is also, being scanned. And so it has everything to do with the client and the purpose of the content, and really less to do with necessarily us saying, okay, well, we only scan this kind of property.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned one of your first scans was a cemetery. What was the use case there? What are they doing scanning the cemetery outdoor? Like scanning the building, I guess I can maybe understand, but why are we
Yeah.
scanning cemeteries?
Well, I have to think about it. Think about this as early 2016, and there was really, you had panoramas, but you wouldn't have something that was like an inclusive type of a tour. And a lot of people that are, doing end of life planning are not able to travel to a cemetery. Maybe they're remote, or maybe they just can't go. And so that was really the idea, was enabling some sort of enabling some sort of immersive tour for somebody. And so I actually thought it was a great service. I
Yeah.
think that anytime you can provide somebody with more information about where they are. And actually, those scans were converted into virtual reality as well. So we had, and that was before we had Core VR with
Yeah.
Matterport, which allowed us to basically just sort of automatically have a space be viewable in virtual reality. And it was, pano to pano and gaze activated. But it was really for the Gear VR that those were created. And I think that to me, it's again, it's what does your client need, and what are you going to be able to do to help them in their work and make their jobs easier. And so we weren't thinking at that time about creating digital twins. It was really as a sales tool. So and then and then that was one example, and then from there, I've just seen countless other examples of commercial real estate, industrial, other types of properties that we have scanned where we were accomplishing the same thing. It just
Yeah.
wasn't, it was a different kind of property.
Yeah. It's interesting. The use case is really the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually a really good idea now that the way you say it, it allows somebody who can't visit, in this case, maybe visit a loved one or something like that, to remotely and virtually visit um, that location. So, and that's exactly what,
Yeah.
mostly Matterport is used for, right? I mean, either
Yeah.
use it for marketing or for managing, and managing is really just kind of collaboration and remotely accessing locations that you can't otherwise.
Yeah, it's good for all of those things, and I love the idea. In the beginning, I was really thinking about extraordinary spaces and being able to um, take these incredible tours in VR was really the thing that I was most excited about, because I had lived overseas personally. I'd lived in Europe for a long time, and I love being in VR, and I love doing virtual tours, or going into Google Earth in VR, things like that.
Yeah.
So for me to be able to create that kind of content myself using a sort of a end-to-end system where Matterport was really the first system where more or less at the time, I think the price was about $4,500. So it certainly was beyond the reach of a consumer to purchase that for themselves, but really for a um, a small business, or for a prosumer slash an enthusiast, they could invest in that system, and then they could be making immersive tours without having to know how to stitch together a panorama. So I always loved that Matterport really made that part very easy. And in the beginning, you would think, okay, well, this is going to be a very steep learning curve. But in fact, I think what it is that it's easy. It's like that. It's like that game Go, or it's like these are like chess or checkers. It's like a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. It's
Right.
like, and I think that's really how I feel about the Matterport system, because it is constantly evolving.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Right. So, okay. So before we get too technical, I know I wanted to talk to you. You and I can nerd out about all the all the technical bits of Matterport. Wanted to just get an idea of how you went about just kind of like building your business. You have a thriving Matterport business. You're out there scanning. You started with residential real estate, and now you're doing a lot more commercial real estate.
Yeah.
How does one make that transition?
Well, I think it really depends on the person. For me, I had no contacts in real estate other than the few that I had made in the first months at the startup that I was at. So the first few scans were, fortunately, I had a friend who had an Airbnb, and so I scanned his Airbnb, and I called up a dad at my kid's school. I knew he was a realtor, and I just asked him if he was interested in that. And that was when I really got my first understanding of people are not going to buy this as a stand at that time. They were not going to buy this as a standalone service. And
Mhm.
he was like, yeah, that sounds cool, but I really need photos. And so I had a camera and I took photographs. And when I look back, I love to show them to my team, especially when I hire somebody new. I always show them my first photo shoot because it was atrocious. And my Matterport was amazing, but my photo shoot was terrible. And so, I think it was starting to get different scans that I could show in my portfolio. And then when back in the day, I want to say some of my earliest commercial clients, Matterport used to have a referral program. I don't think that it's very active anymore, because I think because of capture services, or maybe you refer to capture services. But
Mhm.
back in the day, based on your geography, there would be certain leads that would come, and we had a portal for getting leads through Matterport. And so those would go out to a lot of different photographers at the same time. And I saw that there was a request for a large commercial brokerage in the Oakland area. And I've worked in sales in previous jobs. And so I've always done a very good job of kind of crafting and creating custom proposals. So I worked really hard on making a very customized proposal that I thought would be attractive to a B2B client. And uh, and then we kind of negotiated the rates. And at the time, I didn't know if the Matterport camera could even handle 20,000 square feet, which was a full floor office, because I hadn't done anything that large yet. But I tried it, and I mean, I got the job, I tried it. And then from there, once you can successfully prove that you can do something, people will hire you again. And I think for anybody in this business, and I would tell any small business owner, any person who's working and trying to drum up business, you really have to think about the relationship of the client, like the lifetime value of that customer. So I think about all my clients that way. I don't think about them as a one-off. I think about, is this going to be somebody who will come back to us again and again every time they need something? Or can I also sell other things to them that they may not have thought about yet? So in that way, my approach is very consultative. And so I actually develop a pretty great relationship with most of my clients. And I would say that that has led to a lot of our success. And it's just being able to be more of a almost like a team member with a lot of our clients. Like they look to us as that expertise, and that's how I've built it. But you have to make some calls, and you have to do marketing, and you have to build up a portfolio.
Yeah. And would you say, I've heard this from others, I would totally do this myself, to build up a portfolio. If anybody's just getting started, offer the service for free.
Yeah, of
That's not
course.
a bad thing.
Yeah, it's practice for you in the beginning. And like I mentioned before, that minute to learn, lifetime to master, I think it's so true. The thing that I think differentiates somebody who has more experience from somebody who doesn't is not that we know everybody can, press the button, do the scan, move the camera. It's what you need to think about, or what you need to understand about the way the camera works to get you out of trouble if you have errors. It's
Yeah.
if you have errors in the field, that's really for me the expertise. It comes down to understanding what's happening with the technology inside of the camera. And so how do you back yourself out of a problem? And then also imagining what it's going to look like on the back end in post-production is the other part of it. That different people have different styles, but I would say that's really the thing that more experienced Matterport users all have in common.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would totally agree. Getting yourself out of trouble, understanding why a misalignment may have happened,
Mhm.
knowing to spot the misalignment, and of course, knowing, how to fix that problem. But also I would say that thinking about the use case, how is your client going to use this model? And therefore, based on that, where do I need to place my scan positions?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. All of those things. And it was even more so when we were using Matterport for VR, more, like as like one of the main use cases, then the navigation of what would be a good experience for somebody so that they don't end up sort of being thrown across the room and then standing staring at the corner,
Yeah.
or like, popping into headset and then being just staring straight at a wall. That's a bad user experience, right? So I think that absolutely, what is the use case, and those are the things to think about. Yeah, you have to kind of keep a lot all in your mind all at once when you're creating the content, and I don't know that everybody needs it. And if you're just going out to do a survey and you're not, and you just need the dimensions, you might not be as precise about the location because you just need to get through the place with as few scans as possible, and so you're optimizing for something else.
Yeah.
So again, I think that the use case, like you just said, is really important.
Yeah. Optimizing for the use case. Okay. So you mentioned that, when you were creating this, when you're the real estate agent that you had called up, parent at your school, they said, look, Matterport's great, but I also need photos. So you created like this bundle. So I think it's really important to note that, putting together a package, certainly if you're doing any kind of marketing material, if that's if that's the use case for your customer, if you're doing CRE for promote and residential real estate, for promote purposes, then kind of understanding the Matterport isn't everything you need. They also want photos. They may also want a floor plan, and kind of putting that all together in one easy push button solution for them.
Yeah, there are people that use the photos from the Matterport, and we have also in many instances, and I see that there's a lot of real estate photographers and even folks from engineering. There's somebody from Poland in the chat. So Jakub and Rena and Tony, all these people, I'm excited that they're all here. Barbara, Ramesh, like all of you guys, thank you for being here. And I want to make sure that I'm telling you things that you want to know. But yes, you can use the photographs. With the Pro One, I think it's improved. I think alignment has improved. Stitching has improved, but comparing something that I would shoot with my DSLR with a Matterport camera, it would work for, I would say, multifamily, I would say for lower end properties, but I would not be able to use I still would not be able to use a Matterport photo for like super high end stuff, with the exception of we forgot something and we need to go back, and so we can pull that image, and that has saved us from having to return to the property more times than I can count. So it does have value. It's just that the control that you have when you're shooting raw media is just so much better. And so for most of our clients, that's kind of the higher end photography is what they're looking for.
So for higher end clients, you're not going to skimp on just doing a Matterport and then grabbing the images from there. You're going to say, look, we're going to provide you with full on DSLR images, HDR, and you're going to get the best of the best of both worlds, right? You get not only a 3D model, but you also get really nice high-end crisp images.
Yeah, it has to do with the way, and I think the real estate photographers that are watching today will appreciate this. I think it really has to do with the kind of emotion that you can create with photography. And so being able to control the aperture, being able to control focal length and lighting, and even just the placement. Like if I have my camera moving through a space like on a dolly, like in the space behind me was shot on a dolly, right? So I'm moving the camera through, I'm going to have all of my shots will be wide angle. Yes, I can bump in on Matterport in the workshop, but it just doesn't have the same. It's missing that that emotion in the imagery, and so that's something you can really control when you're a real estate photographer or any photographer. But if you only just need to show the representation, like what is in this space as documentation, it's great for that. So I would say, again, like you can't replace it for high-end real estate photography, but you can certainly use it for a lot of different use cases.
Yeah. I can definitely appreciate that. I think you're right. I think there is definitely a lot more control when you have a manual DSLR, when you can control things like aperture, white balance, all that stuff. Matterport is fully automated. It's a point and shoot, right? I mean, you're just pressing a button and it's doing everything for you. And I would 100% agree, for documentation, it's brilliant. If you want to show, what's really there, and you do lose a little bit of that emotion.
Yeah, I mean, I remember doing side by side photography on a test with Matterport cameras, like back when I was not a great photographer, which was, a few years ago. I would say I really fell into the camp of being super new to photography, especially for architecture and real estate. And I didn't really understand as much as I needed to about vertical lines and about blending and all these things. And so Matterport, in many cases, I would say, like in the beginning, was better than my photography. Maybe my composition might have been better from camera, but Matterport was always somehow like magically perfectly white balanced. And so that was definitely something where, surprisingly, as your skill gets better with something, Matterport may be not enough. But in some cases, Matterport may be perfectly fine because your photography level is not there yet either. So it
Yeah,
has to do with the person and where they're going to put their energy. What are they going to try and get better at? Which pencil are they going to sharpen?
yeah, and you didn't come into this as a photographer bringing
No.
Matterport into you started with Matterport and then brought photography
Yes.
into your offering.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. Okay. So, but speaking of lines, this is just something that I just happen to notice real quick. So I want to just mention it for anybody who is maybe just getting started. Having your Matterport camera at 4.5 feet will definitely help those vertical lines. Is that the same that you've run into? I see that people will have the camera a little higher. They'll have it at what we used to actually recommend, 5.5 feet, average, kind of like center lens at average person height. And I think that's actually not the right way to go. I'm not sure why it took us so long to figure that out.
I think it's just the ceiling. I think it's the proximity from the camera. It's the ceiling height that makes the difference. If you're in a large, like this space behind me is
Hmm.
a commercial office space, 5.5 feet. So I'm 5'4.5". So basically I was really lucky. I could just kind of put the top of the camera at eye level and I pretty much had like the perfect height. And so that's 65. What I think that's 65, whatever, or a meter 65 for everybody else. But anyway, basically the height of the camera for me in a large space with the ceiling being much higher, 5'4", 5 feet was totally fine.
Okay.
If I'm in a residential space and the ceiling is lower, we have 8-foot ceiling, then having the camera lower helps because it is what you said, it's the verticals, but it's also the feeling of, am I a giant? And if the ceiling
Yeah.
is too high, then you will have that experience of being, whoa, I feel like I'm like high and I'm
Like you're
looking at this from
towering
the
over
wrong
everything,
perspective.
like you're going to bump
Yeah.
your head on door jams.
Yeah, it's the scale. I think you have to remember it's just the scale of the space that you're in. And this sort of is funny as we're talking, I'm remembering, and this might be interesting for some people who are new to Matterport. When I first started, I realized that my spatial awareness and the way that I walked into spaces, I was doing a lot of scanning at that time, and I would walk into a space and I would imagine scanning it. So it really did give me a lot more spatially aware thinking as I, did this more and more. And that goes back to the beginning, I think, to like 2015, 2016. And so those things will become second nature as you do more of the scanning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that exactly goes to your point of experience. At first, I think you look at the mini map on your, mobile device, whatever, and you just try to like flesh it out, and you're not really so concerned with, where the position of the camera is at, and you don't really think about navigation. You're not as spatially aware of, what's going to come of this, and how do I want my visitors to kind of move through the space. And that's just a skill that you develop over time, I guess. It's not.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you have to have some sort of navigation plan about how you're going to go through different areas of a property. But I would say, even in the example behind me, it would be tempting to only have the camera go as far as it needs to. Like, say the camera only went to here because you didn't need to go all the way to the window to make the geometry of the space. But what is the leasing agent trying to sell? The views of downtown San Francisco and the views of the waterfront or something else. So it's like you need to constantly be thinking about, what is the purpose? Why is my client paying me to do this? And maybe for the folks who are doing it for engineering or surveying, they don't care about the views. They don't care about what's out the window. But for somebody else, that's just as important as having, the tour itself, and maybe even the most important.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, I want to talk a little bit about digital twins,
Okay.
because that
Let's
so
go.
Matterport, Matterport, we market ourselves. We're a digital twin platform, and that's has positives and negatives. The problem is with somebody in commercial real estate looking to promote space, or certainly residential real estate. We get this all the time. They don't know what a digital twin is. How do you deal with that? Do you not even use that term when you're marketing to your customers? Do you use it and define it? How are you defining it?
Yeah. So a
And all
digital
that.
Thank you so much for bringing it up, Amir. And I think that if people aren't aware of my YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel where I talk about, a lot of these topics. I talk about the metaverse, I talk about virtual reality, digital twins, and a lot about Matterport as well. And one of the things that I had, there's a timeline that I have been developing over a few years that sort of shows the Matterport history of when it launched, kind of when it was in development, I think 2013, all the way to when the company used to call itself really as a virtual tour company. That was its branding. And then it switched. I think it was in 2021, or maybe it was 2022. I'll have to look back. But basically, Matterport switched its branding to become a digital twin company. And digital twin is a term that when I first heard it, prior to Matterport adopting it, I was like, what's a digital twin? That sounds kind of weird. Like, I have no idea what that is. It felt like a lot of jargon to me, and something that, because it was not well defined and easily understood, could lead to people using it or misusing it and not really understanding what it is. So the best, and because it is multiple things, so the best, I think, definition of it that I have is that it is a digital twin can be it can be, the digital twin could be a person, like an avatar. It could be a process, like showing a wind turbine, or having something that we create digitally in a sort of computer generated environment, a digital environment. Or it could be a place. It could be something that has been mapped spatially, and we have created a 3D map or a digital twin of a location. So I'll just put that, because I just mentioned that. It's like, so it's a person, a process, or a place. I'm going to put that in the chat, so if people are wondering what that is, they can sort of see that those are the things that I would say can be digitally twinned. And in the case of Matterport, what that means is that our 3D model, the underlying geometry that you are creating, which is a 3D mesh, right? It's a point cloud. And for people who aren't familiar with what that is, that's the scanning part of it, not the photography part. It's really the scanning and the 3D model. And once we have that 3D model, which is digital, we can use that to understand our property better, to augment it by, adding additional information to that model itself. And so that's really the digital twin, is this, a digital replica that can have, that can be used for many things, such as understanding processes, such as a collaboration tool. It can be used for all of these different things.
Yeah. Agreed, 100%. I think definitely the one of the problems, I think, if not the main problem, is the fact that every industry kind of defines it in its own way. And then you've got agencies like Gartner and Forrester Research that look at all of this. They do their work and then give their definition of what a digital twin is. Some industries define a digital twin as having that relationship, that kind of bi-directional flow of data and communication between the physical twin and the digital twin. Essentially, a digital twin is a digital replica
Mm-hmm.
of the physical space. So you've got, it's a twin, right? You have two, the physical and the digital. But with Matterport, it's not necessarily that, right? You can get that from the Matterport digital twin. There are SDK partners that embed IoT data and whatnot into the model itself, and boom, you've got a full-on digital twin that has that level of communication. But yeah, I see it as more than just the virtual walkthrough, which is where we used to be, because you have that 3D layer of data and information that you can do so much more with. It's not just this like pano to pano. You have a lot of power that hasn't fully been. I mean, right now there are some platform partners that take advantage of it and are
Like
able to,
right? Like
SimLab. Yeah, exactly.
SimLab is a great example. If people don't
Perfect
know
example.
SimLab, they can check them out. Brilliant company. And I think Treatise is working on
Treatise,
that
yeah,
as well.
Treatise,
So
Captured.
Captured, Treatise, SimLab. These I would say there are some of the leaders. There's a new one I think that you guys are going to have on Shop Talk in a couple of weeks in May.
View AR is also one that's really
Oh,
popular.
VueAR, there's some of my favorite people. They're based in Vienna.
Yeah.
VueAR is incredible and they're brilliant, led by Marcus Meixner. And those guys have been doing this forever. And so absolutely. Right. And so once you have the digital twin, once you have this 3D map, if you will, let's use VueAR as an example. Was I'm pretty familiar with that and I've used it, I've experimented with it. Doing things like having a digital assistant navigate you through a space that has been mapped with a Matterport model, then can be viewed in augmented reality, taking you through a space as a virtual tour guide. And so those are the things that become possible. And we were, back when I was first learning about Matterport in 2015, 2016, we knew that day would come. We thought it would maybe take about 18 months or, a couple years. It took many more years for the SDK to open up for SDK partners and for other people to be building an ecosystem on top of Matterport. But yes, those are the exciting developments that make me understand why Matterport sort of went the direction of, we are a digital twin company. Look at all the cool things that we enable.
Yeah, you can get a virtual tour, or you can do a whole bunch of other stuff that is very, very kind of solution focused for exactly what you need. And pick and choose. And there's like 170 platform partners now.
Yeah, I would say
It's kind of insane.
for example, there's somebody in the chat, I don't know if they're still watching, but Emil Indrakow, who works in hotels and showrooms. Another wonderful example is All Seated.
All Seated is a
And
good one.
I
Yeah.
don't know if Emil is familiar with All Seated, but I'll just keep listing the names of companies that pop up as I'm thinking about this. But
Yeah.
All Seated is wonderful because, and I've scanned for them many locations in San Francisco, and they will do the Matterport scan and of a hotel. We'll go in and we'll do like all the ballrooms or all the conference rooms, and then with All Seated you can do virtual conference planning. You can do you can give a virtual tour of the venue, and you can use it for configuring the different layouts for different meeting setups and things like that. So
Yeah.
it really helps in a situation where people have difficulty visualizing. That is where there's this next level of now that's available to you, because before, or if I just go into workshop right now, I can put matter tags in and I can do a few cool things, but really the next level use cases are the ones that have been developed by the partners,
Yeah,
because they've done so many cool things. So yeah, check
absolutely.
out All Seated, Emil.
And in your industry, right, CRE as well as TNA, travel and hospitality, huge one is Zoont, right? I mean, these, I don't know if you're familiar with them,
That's the one
but
I think I was thinking of also,
okay.
that, yeah.
So they do lead gen, and yeah, we're going to have them on a webinar. So if anybody's interested in getting more leads for their space, then that's a good one to use.
Yeah, those are the greatest. Like, anybody who can kind of take this and turn it into a marketplace for their industry is going to, I think, be in a really good position to be a disruptor. And that's why when people make their websites, if you're a Matterport photographer, or you're doing primarily real estate, I would say it's a really good time to diversify. The real estate industry is volatile and can be seasonal, and I think that it's so important for you and your business to have multiple offerings to different clients, and different client bases, and to look at, hey, can I get business in hospitality? Can I get business in AEC? And the more you know about what the platform can do, you can understand how to communicate those applications and use cases to decision makers in that industry.
Yeah, completely agree. If you can find these platform partners that provide the really focused and sharpened solution, and it's offering that, I think, to your customer base is
Yeah,
next level.
totally.
All right, so we've got a couple questions that have come in. I definitely encourage everybody to go ahead. If you've got a question, throw it in there. Don't feel like you have to wait until I say, okay, it's time for Q&A.
Yeah, no, I would love it if people jumped in. We've got I don't know, we've got about 20 minutes left, and I really want to hear from people. I think that if you're joining this call, there's a wealth of information. Amir has done such a great job of interviewing different people and providing information, but I really want to hear what people are thinking about, and sort of the things that are burning questions for them right now.
Yeah. One question. This is an easy one for you.
Okay.
What's your YouTube channel? How do people find you
Oh,
on YouTube?
it's Hopscotch Interactive. So if they go to YouTube and they type in Hopscotch Interactive, they'll see that I do pretty regular videos on Matterport. And I think that one of the reasons we wanted to chat was because I was talking about one of the most popular videos recently was Matterport Pro 3 versus Pro 2, and what sold me, why Kevin and I decided that so Kevin is a media producer at Hopscotch Interactive, and why did we sort of come to the conclusion that the Pro 3 was a big important investment for us. And so we did a video on that because of thank you, Charmaine, for adding that to the chat. But we did a video where we were documenting our experience, which was that the space behind me, again, I have this one pulled up because we ran into issues where the Pro 2 could not overcome the space. It was just, my tech. So Kevin was having trouble aligning. He was having trouble in the space, and it was taking a really long time. And I knew that the Pro 3, just based on what the Pro 3's LiDAR capabilities were, I knew that it would overcome this a lot faster, or that it would overcome those issues and would be less frustrating. So we were fortunate to get a Pro 2 right away. I didn't have it at the time, but we brought in another photographer who had a Pro 2, and that was incredible, because then we were able to do the space. And what we didn't realize was just the incredible time saving.
You mean the
It,
Pro 3? The
I mean, sorry,
photographer
the
who
Pro
had the,
3.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. We brought in the Pro 3, and we didn't realize the incredible time saving. And then it was in that moment that we realized, for not all of our scans, because I have 5 Pro 2s and I have 5 Z1s, and so for me, investing in Pro 3s for the whole fleet didn't make sense. But in order to have at least one Pro 3 in our inventory so that we could use it when we needed it was like a total game changer. And we knew that we could just, for many of our clients, we can upload to their accounts. So we weren't going to run into any kind of long-term hosting issues if we had the Pro 3, but we could upload to client accounts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. This has been a thing. I come from like a photography background and selling digital cameras for many years. Every time a new DSLR would come out, people would feel like the one that they had is just no good anymore. And that's just not true, right? I mean, it still does the same job it used to. Just because something new comes out does not mean that what you have doesn't work anymore. You can still use it. It's perfectly good, for what it does. So yeah, I think, getting the Pro 3 just to kind of add to your fleet of cameras and use on the jobs that need that is definitely the right way to go. But no one should feel like now that Pro 3 is out, I have to replace my Pro 2 because everybody's going to want Pro 3. The Pro 2 is still a very, very good, workhorse of a camera.
Definitely. So I think, Amir, this question from Mark Franklin, who is an amazing reality capture specialist. He has a question. I think this is more for Matterport because this is something, or for you, because this is something that we were both wondering about, if the platform would ever go beyond like the BLK. What are the chances of him being able to integrate like a Faro or a Trimble?
I would personally absolutely love for that to happen. We are, I think, working towards being as camera agnostic, input agnostic as possible. I mean, with 360 cameras and phones and things like that. Before that, the BLK, I would like to go even further. I would love to see that happen. I have not heard of that being, a thing that we're working towards. So unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen in the near term. But definitely, I think it would be a great idea. The other thing is, we have to think about how that's going to get used. So we do have a lot of webinar content with some of our subject matter experts, Stephanie Lynn, Chris Atkinson, who come from that space in AEC. And, the question is, how critical is it to use Faro for all these projects? Sometimes 100%. Yes, Matterport is absolutely not a replacement of those, just like it's not a replacement for photography. It's kind of in between there. So does your project require that level of accuracy? Sometimes, yes. We've got customers like Arup, massive, AEC space company. They use both, right? They'll use the Matterport to kind of get things going a lot faster than what a professional expert level draftsman can do with the Faro. Then, 3-4 weeks into the project, they've got everything they need from the Faro at that point, and they can tweak some measurements in the Revit model. So they actually do use both.
I think that's great. I think that's an amazing way to look at it. So you're saying both from the timing of get started faster in the documentation process in the project by using a Matterport and deploying that because it's faster, less expensive, and it's less accurate. But are you saying then if you need that level of detail and that accuracy from the Faro, like I'm imagining like a 1 inch, I don't know, like something that's an inch or something that's like super complicated. Imagine an industrial warehouse or manufacturing plant where you need the Faro and you need your point cloud to be really highly detailed so that you can pinpoint the different objects. Then you're saying go back in with the Faro or go back in with those devices?
They would, I probably won't be able to find it super fast to provide the link, but if anyone's interested, reach out to me on LinkedIn. We have information about this. We actually we had Arup on a webinar. And Michael from AirUp explained exactly what they do. But yes, that is essentially the bottom line, is they'll start the project with Matterport just to kind of get that as built as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible. And then, they can already start kind of working on it from there, getting,
Yeah.
meetings out of the way, decisions being made based on that as built. And then when they need to just make that kind of millimeter inch kind of level of accuracy tweaks to some of the measurement points, they'll use the Faro for that.
So this is a good point because I have a commercial. So two of our largest clients, one is commercial real estate, the other is a the construction and remodeling, and they're more for the residential side of the business. So on that side of things, we do a Matterport scan for, I would say, at least half their projects. And again, it's basically for the efficiency on the design process, right? So that way, like, the first thing that happens is that we will go in and do a scan, or we'll have some documentation of the as-built, which is such a good point, Amir, because the time that it takes for designers to be able to go in and get that level of detail, they have to maybe get even somebody who's going to come in and they aren't available for a few weeks.
Mhm.
And so you can schedule somebody a lot faster. And, you always want to go in and measure everything more precisely at a certain point, but certainly to get things going quickly. And then also, I think, as a reference, you could be, and this goes for listing agents, this goes for AEC applications. Nobody can remember the details of, like, how many plugs are there or how many outlets are there in a room. Nobody will remember those details. So having 360 documentation helps us go back to the space, refresh our memories, look at it together. And so as a collaboration tool, and even just as that documentation and a timestamp of what it looked like on this date. And that's one of the things I love about Matterport, is that it really always to me seemed like a digital timestamp. Like, hey, this is what it looked like on this day. And we can go back to it and say, here's what's changed, here's what's moved, or identify the objects in the space, which is something that Matterport's working on that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. I found the post it in the chat. So that is actually just a short kind of clip from the main webinar, but it'll give you an example of how AirUp is using it. So
Awesome.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, Matterport is a really good way, as far as collaboration is concerned. It's right now it's the fastest way of creating your digital twin, right? A lot of companies that you'll hear about, if you do research about digital twins, you hear like Siemens, you hear NVIDIA. They have these massive digital twins, some of like Willow, they're digital twins of cities. But nobody's talking about how that's getting created. If it's a city, mostly it's just people spending a lot of time in front of a application like Revit or whatever 3D tool they're using to do it manually. But Matterport is still the fastest way right now to get an as-built from a physical space, like a building, like a structure. And whether you need that Faro level of accuracy is, I guess, up to you. I mean, I've talked a lot with people in that industry who deal with AEC, who deal with architects that require the as-built, who don't want to create the as-built themselves. They want to architect, they want to reimagine the space. So if you can provide that for them and say, hey, I'll get you the as-built, because Matterport provides that as a service, right? I mean, you can get your BIM assets directly from your Matterport model. I think that's a huge win. And from the people that I've spoken to, a lot of them aren't even using. We had just a month or two ago, we had somebody on that wasn't even using Pro 3 and doing great work with architecture and getting BIM
Absolutely.
assets.
Yeah, the Pro 3 is really beneficial when you need to go outdoors
Mhm.
and when you want to move quickly through a large open space. So that would be for me the biggest difference. It is the Pro 2 otherwise is totally sufficient in a house And I would say the only thing is that whether or not you want to easily or more easily capture things like the landscaping or the exterior or the perimeter, or you want to connect your scan more beautifully, if you can say beautifully, more beautifully to things like a detached ADU or another building like a garage that's detached from the property, then it comes in handy and is really, really helpful. And you can really do the entire scan of the lot. But otherwise, yeah, the Pro 2 could certainly tackle plenty of use cases, for AEC easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, all right. So we've got some questions, and I definitely want to get to those. Like I told you, you and I can nerd out about this stuff
I
forever.
know, it's great. I
It's
love
too
it,
easy.
Amir. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah. All right. So Don asks, what type of equipment do you now use for scanning? I think we talked about that. And do you run into any situations where you use an iPhone instead of a pro camera?
Oh, an iPhone instead of a pro camera for scanning? No, I don't. I will admit to everyone on the call that I have a Matterport Axis that I have never used. It's still in the box. I bought it when it came out because I wanted to try it. Maybe I will do a YouTube video about it because I know there's some people that use the Matterport Axis and use the iPhone. Actually, it's not true. I did try it before the Axis came out. The Axis system, which if maybe people don't know, it's basically it's a device for your iPhone or for your phone to help you create scans and sort of position the camera along this um, center axis so that you can easily keep things aligned. I tried it handheld when we first were able to use iPhones, and I tried it handheld, but it was for me, it was like I couldn't go backwards. So that was the problem. I couldn't go slower and I didn't want to go backwards in terms of the quality. So I've never used it professionally. I only used it to test and but the results for me were I couldn't do it. But I know that people are creating really great nodal heads for that. And I think that the Axis, and there may be others that come out too. I feel like, sure, why not?
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna compare it, I would compare it to something like the Z1. And I think as far as like image quality, you'll be pleasantly surprised considering, it's a phone that you already have with you. You don't have to invest in $1,000 device. But you do lose on the speed of the Z1, right? I mean, the
Yeah,
benefit of those 360 cameras, they are just wicked fast.
they are.
So that's cool. All right. Uh, how do you cope with scenarios which are different to scan, such as long corridors? That's a challenging one for sure.
Hmm.
Once I haven't been able to close the loop in my space, capture, I lost it. Capture app does not give good tools to correct it manually, and there is no desktop software to do before uploading.
Hmm.
So loop closure is definitely an issue. I don't know that we have the time to talk about loop closure right
All
now.
right.
But yeah, let's chat about that a little bit. What do you do? I mean, especially a place like the one behind you.
Hmm.
Loop close. I don't know if it comes all the way
It
around.
does. It goes
Okay.
around a core of the building. So this was about an 18,000 square foot, if I recall, full floor office in San Francisco, where you would need loop closure, meaning you would start at point A and then go back around and go back to point A, I guess, and full 360 around the building. And loop closure for us, this is also one of those like the more you do this, the more comfortable you are looking at your mini map and seeing maybe you didn't totally perfectly align everything, but having faith that it will process out. And so I always call it processing out with my team, where we can see that there has been drift in the model. This is more true with probably the Pro 2, which was infrared scanning versus LiDAR scanning, where we would have a little bit more drift. The LiDAR camera has a longer range, and that underlying scanning technology is more accurate. So I would say if you're experiencing problems with loop closure, I would be curious to know which camera you're using. And so in any case, that has been, it's been really only an issue for us where we would have things start to overlap in a really large scan in a really large space that didn't process out all the way. And then my solution, I know this isn't so sort of fast, but I would typically get in touch with Matterport support, and then they assist with the loop closure. So I don't know, Amir, if you have a different answer, but I've had Matterport's help with a couple of situations like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an issue, but what I would say is scan density. Scan density is the number one thing that anyone can do very simply. Yes, I mean, you end up taking, more scan positions. It takes a little bit longer, but with more kind of overlapping scan data, it's going to align faster. So you get to
Mm-hmm.
move on to the next one quicker and more accurately. So you have less drift. And then, yes, like you just said, in the processing, once you upload all your data to the processing engine, you've got something that's a lot stronger than a iPad or whatever you might be using, kind of mobile device that does look and try to realign, a little bit, right? It's not going to work miracles, but if you are a little bit drift, if you do find that, once you come back all the way around to your starting point, there's a little bit off by a couple of feet even, it can fix that in processing.
Yeah, it fixes it in processing. And always, my other big tip would be the most critical point where you would want the scan density is at the intersection. Like, so if you have a hallway that's hitting another hallway, make sure that your first scan is not at an angle coming off that hallway, because that's going to introduce alignment issues right away. You want to stay in that straight line and then go down the new hallway in a straight line. I would say watch out that sort of zigzag approach that sometimes people take, where they will literally, quite literally, move into a new intersection and then cut the corner because they're walking that direction. That's a natural way to walk. You don't usually walk out into the center. The Matterport camera needs to be placed in the center,
100%.
because that will keep you in full alignment. So that would be my biggest tip, is like the density, but also that's one use case. What's one case where your placement of the camera can be very, very helpful to just know you need to maintain that straight line.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. All right, we do have a good question here that what was it? Commercial real estate. I think it went away. Want to get your point on or your kind of thoughts on commercial real estates and using Matterport in that industry. Positive, negative, or was it anonymous? Had a question. There we go. Can you explain more about how Matterport helps in commercial real estate, good and bad? We'll end it.
Yeah, I think that commercial real estate is a really useful example for people of how having a virtual tour as part of the marketing, and having, I would say in the future, the digital twin as well, being able to have sensor data or to be able to use that potentially for a future tenant as something for planning. But definitely on the leasing side, having the Matterport tour has become really an expectation. I think that if you don't provide a virtual tour, and another thing that really helped my business was, of course, during the pandemic, we were all we were all sort of prevented from going and doing tours, right? And meeting, and brokers couldn't meet people on site, or that they couldn't do it safely. So for the commercial real estate industry, I think having at the very least a handful of panoramas beats having just photography pretty much every time. We have clients that do it as an insurance policy in case there were ever another lockdown. We have clients that do it because they want to be able to give it to a tenant to potentially do some design work. So it has multiple use cases in the commercial real estate space. But where they don't usually use it is like they don't necessarily use it for floor plans, because they already have all of that drafted from architects typically. But if you needed to know the square footage of some place that maybe somebody was getting as an acquisition or purchasing, then again, you could get like that very fast floor plan and dimensions from that as well.
Yeah. And a lot of times companies will come in, rent a space and add some walls, take down walls, change things around to make it fit their needs. And all of a sudden those plans may not be any good anymore. So you want a quick Matterport scan to create that as built, or at least those schematic floor plan drawings. We have, companies like Savills, Cushman Wakefield, and JLL, massive CRE companies that use it not only for the promote use case. JLL has a room where they bring in customers and they say, how does this space look to you? How does this
Well,
space look to
it
you?
goes exactly, Amir. You're so right, and I think and Mark, I know Mark Franklin was on the call, or he's on this call. He was watching earlier. For the advanced use cases, you can use these 3D scans. I don't know that Matterport works in all cases, but certainly for even imagining, can you fit a certain piece of equipment into a building? The modeling, Mark and his team do that kind of work. And so I think that's really an important thing to keep in mind, is that if you have a 3D model, you can actually, use this to run simulations. And those simulations are best done with a reality capture.
Yeah. Simulated virtually before you bring in a whole bunch of furniture and start moving it around the physical space. It
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense to see, what the layout's going to be prior to that.
Oh, I have, yeah, totally. Okay, commercial real estate. There's a great question, I think, here, Amir. I want to take a look at this.
Yeah, for sure.
They should use the scans to have, okay, if they have to make measurements anyway. But they don't get it. Okay, so yeah, I think that the pitch to a commercial real estate broker who feels like the best value of this is the dimensions, or is the square footage, or getting another floor plan. I get, like I said before, my clients don't use it typically for the floor plan. They use it specifically, like you're talking about, for project meetings without traveling. You could have a Zoom call like this, and there's many different Matterport, ecosystem partners that have, besides a Zoom meeting where we could look at the Matterport model together, there are other examples, maybe Amir knows a few of them, where you can go in and you can actually meet in the space together.
Sure.
So
yeah, Superviz is a good one. I don't know if you've heard of them. And Treatise also does that as well. Each one goes in with an avatar. But yeah, so it's not just CRE is a massive industry that means a lot of different things, but it's not just promote, right? It's not just here's a space, familiarize yourself with it. Yes, that's a great use case, but also for the facility manager, to use those assets. Certainly in a space like the one behind you, and to see all that MEP critical, if you are building a structure.
yes.
Prior to insulation and sheetrock,
Mhm.
have that scan. That is an incredible asset for a facility manager to know what's going on inside the walls after everything's been put up.
Yep.
So a lot of different use cases, but unless you actually see somebody using it and putting it into their workflow, then it's kind of hard to understand how they get used. I get that. With that said, we did go a little bit over. I told you we would do this.
Did we?
So, and we didn't even we didn't get a chance to answer all the questions. I apologize.
Oh no. Well, people should reach out to me.
Yes.
And
how can they reach you?
Well, they can reach out to me a couple of different ways. The YouTube channel, like I said, I post a lot of videos there, and I always love getting suggestions from the community. So if you subscribe there and then shoot me a message, or comment on any of the videos, I will definitely think about that for future stuff. They can go to hopscotchinteractive.com. They can email me at emily@hopscotchinteractive.com. And I think that those are really the best ways. I also, I share a few different things on LinkedIn as well. So under Emily Olman on LinkedIn, those are the places I'm most active. And, if you're just starting out, or even if you're, way deep in the weeds on, in industrial use cases or engineering use cases, that's the direction that I think Hopscotch will be spending a lot more time in 2023. We're looking at the advanced use cases more closely for our business. So, I'd love to meet everybody and welcome you to get in touch.
Awesome. That sounds great. Huge thank you, Emily, for taking the time to be with us today. And thank you very, very much to everyone who attended, asked all these great questions. I really hope that you got something out of this. I know I did. It's great to have somebody, who's been using Matterport for so long share their experience.
Thank you so much, Amir. Thank you. And I wish everybody who joined the best of luck. I know that it can always be, it can be amazing. It can be overwhelming, doing what you do, but, we all like the same stuff. And so I'm just really happy to get to know all of you. And thank you for watching today. And thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And to your point, networking, super important. We didn't even get into that, but maybe next time we'll touch on networking. So definitely reach out to Emily.
Yeah. Thanks, Amir.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks again. Bye-bye. Have a good rest of the day.